Thank you very much, Violetta, Stefanie, and Julia, for joining us today and having this webinar on fundraising, which is a very interesting topic. We are virtually in the Hochschule Lucerne in the design management program, and we are a community of students, teachers, alumni, and people from organizations that come and are part of this learning ecosystem. I will ask you to briefly introduce yourself so that people have an idea of what is that you bring to this conversation. Violetta, would you like to start?
Yes, thank you very much for this introduction. Thanks everyone for joining. My name is Violetta Vitacca. I'm a professional fundraiser and strategy consultant for NGOs, especially in the cultural sector. I'm the owner of Fondazia Impact Consulting. Before I started my own business and working with different organizations, I was a manager at a museum in a transformation process for 6 years. That's also where I did a lot of fundraising. And before that, I was a brand consultant with various brand consulting agencies. And originally, I have a Master of Business Administration from the University of Bern.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Stefanie, would you like to go next?
Of course, thank you. Yes, my name is Stefanie Bumbacher. I am working with Caritas Schweiz, Caritas Switzerland at the moment. There I work in a team with Young Caritas, which is concerned about the youth sector. So we do projects for young people. And my position is very flexible, and I do work in some of the projects, but I'm also in the communication and department, and in the bigger department of communication and fundraising with Caritas. And I am an alumni of design management. I graduated in 2023. Yes. We cannot hear you.
But I will continue. So yeah, my name is Julia Ahlberg, and I'm also a design management alumni. I graduated together with Stefanie, and currently I'm working in a sustainable fashion in the sustainable fashion industry and educational sector. And additionally, I'm engaged in two like nonprofit organizations. One is fostering collaboration for the SDGs, and the other one is in the educational part, so supporting refugees in restarting their studies in Switzerland. And there I have been in touch or had to also engage in fundraising. So yeah, I'm very much looking forward to the discussion.
Good. Thank you very much. So now that we know about you, I would like to pose the question of what are the enjoyable aspects of fundraising that you experience in your work?
Maybe I can start. I know that fundraising can be challenging, but for me, fundraising is really enjoyable because I see it from a win-win perspective or mindset. So you have very enthusiastic, very engaged people or organizations who have really great ideas for projects, who do change the world in whatever their subject is, social, cultural, or whatever. And they need funds in order to realize this project to change the world. And on the other hand, you have these foundations mostly, or private people, but maybe focus on foundations here. They have the funds, but usually they don't have their own projects. So bringing them both together, I see myself as really building bridges to connect these two parts to help the the projects prosper and the foundations to reach their goals, their vision, and kind of like make the world a better place through connecting these two. So that's what I think is really enjoyable for me in fundraising.
Thank you.
Yeah, I that's very nice. I do also, I am with you with the bridging and the connecting people. I also, for me it's like also next to the challenging part, but it's like a nice challenge to have to phrase your projects in a way, or like bring your projects kind of communicate it in a way that makes a lot of sense, that is clear, that is understandable. So that is a challenge, which is like a positive challenge, to think about what are our goals, what is the vision, what is the mission of the project or of the organization as a whole, and to really make it clear, which is very useful for the fundraising part, but it also helps then in really implementing or doing the project, because you're then clear in, okay, what are we gonna do? What do we want to achieve? How are we gonna measure that? Because that's also part of getting funding. So that's kind of also a nice positive thing that I would like to add to your point, Violetta.
Nice.
I agree with both of you. I also see like the benefit really in having the opportunity to do a social project without having to have like a monetary outcome from it, but really getting the financial support to do the project and have a social or sustainable impact. And then for me as well, it's like an opportunity, like if one has to write a fundraising, like a proposal, funding proposal, it's an opportunity to reflect on what do you actually do with your project, where do you want to go, but then also, are we still on track with what we want to achieve in the long run, or do we need to adapt things? And then also a big, or what I find also interesting is the opportunity for storytelling, to like really go into, okay, how does this also play in the bigger picture of our society? How does your project support a bigger transformation maybe? So that's really nice.
And I think that that's a very good point. So how do you support the larger transformation? Is that something that is a straightforward thing, or is that something that needs to be articulated and requires that skills, as Stefanie was talking about, the communication skills or the storytelling skills? And how do you also help the organization itself achieve their goal through fundraising? The donors.
I think it's a really tricky one. It really depends on what kind of project one is doing. For example, with the nonprofit organization that I was engaged with the collaboration for the SDGs, it's so big. It's such a big goal, and also the change that you achieve is very like, it's not that measurable. Like, you cannot say like, we saved, I don't know, CO2 emissions X amount, but it's really about like shifting people's perspective on collaboration and how they enter into a collaboration. So it's very deep on like a systemic level, I would say, and like relationships shifting. So that's really hard to frame and name for an like this foundation. But on the other hand, in the project where we support the refugees, there it's more hands-on, because we can show, okay, this is the amount of people we supported, this is the amount of people who did a language course, or this is the amount of people who accessed higher education. So it depends very much on the level in my case, or in my experience. But yeah, of course, we also support therefore the foundations to achieve their goals depending on where they want to achieve change.
Yeah, I think what both of you just said is very important, is to work on the purpose. And I see sometimes projects that are very clear about the bigger picture and the social impact they achieve with their projects. And sometimes I see initiatives that are not yet aware or cannot yet articulate the greater impact that they have with society. But I think that's something that's very important if you want to do fundraising with foundations, especially also bigger foundations, if you're looking for larger amounts, is that you are very clear of the bigger impact in society that your project has. And there are different tools how to also just step back a bit and look at your project from a bigger perspective. Also ask yourself, why are we doing this? What are our values that we stand for? What's the change in the society, the transformation that we want to see through this? And I think Julia and also Stefanie said something very important is then in the end also measuring success, which how do you measure impact? I think this is really something that I also see the bigger foundations interested in, also working on elaborating the tools together with people working on the project. And I think that's a really interesting part. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. And what just comes to my mind as well is that fundraising is always kind of a matching process. So as you said, you build the bridges, and it has to be a match as well for us in my organization, for example. It has to be a match between our values and the values of the organization or the foundation, as well as it has to be a match between what they want from the project or from the funding and what we want from the project and the funding, and how can we provide with our project something that they are looking for. So because they sometimes also institutional fundraising, they have a lot of already a clear vision what they would like to support or fund. So it is always kind of this matching process, and it needs a lot of conversations, dialogue, and communication in the end that everybody is happy in this whole fundraising system that is built.
I think that the term fundraising system is quite interesting. So you have been saying that it's a building bridge, so it's about building relationships, right? Which the Sustainable Development Goal 17 is all about partnerships for the Sustainable Development Goals. Do you think that because of the Sustainable Development Goals 17, things are changing? Do you see any new things emerging, or is as it used to be?
I don't know. I have not been working in the field for too long, so I cannot compare it. Maybe you know more about it from your experience, Violetta.
Also not too much because I'm mostly working with cultural company organizations like museums in the past, and just started also working with with the social sector projects in social sector. So I don't know too much about how this fact changed the whole industry, but I think it's really important what you just mentioned in the fundraising mindset is the partnership mindset. I think if you are new to fundraising, you usually think, okay, I have to go and I ask them for money to support me. So I go and I say, please, would you please? Which I think people can really be more self-aware and self-conscious about their projects and really try to find a partner. And Stefanie said this really nicely. It's a partnership. You try to find someone who shares the same goals, shares the same values, and you find a partnership. And then you care about this partnership by updating each other about what's going on with the project. Of course, inviting them if you have events. You're like really on the same level in this partnership, and it's not like I serve you and you give me money. So it's more an equal relationship between the partners.
And what do you think is really important when trying to develop these partnerships?
I think, as in every partnership, honesty is fundamental. You have to be honest about the financials, about what you want to do. Also talk about the risks, because that's what foundations also are here for, is kind of like cover also the risk that other funders or potential sources of funding are not willing to take the risk, or are not interested in the risk. And I see more and more the big foundations also really are interested in playing an active role in the project. So sometimes they have experts or they have a network, and they want to really be part of the project. And I think this is like every relationship, this is fundamental.
Yeah, I agree. I would have said kind of the same thing. It's really being, I think both partners have to be clear on what they are bringing and what they are also getting from this partnership, and also really have it clear, have it written down, have it in a clear kind of terms and conditions way, that because it is in the end, so that it in a way is a smooth partnership and it works out. There needs to be a lot of dialogue in the beginning so that both partners are at the end, or at the beginning of the process, but at the end of this dialogue, maybe on the same page.
Can only agree.
Okay. So we have beginning, we have end, so we have the dialogue. So it is a relational process. How do you navigate that process? There are no relationships that are like that. So how do you go through that, whatever shape it takes, that relational process?
From my experience, if you start with fundraising and you start to find yourself, orientate yourself in this whole environment, I always think it's good to start with a big partner. Like sometimes if you have a project and you are searching for funds, you think like, okay, let's start with this small foundation, or with this I don't know, funding that I know. But actually, I learned that the opposite is true. It's always good to start with the big foundations, because they have a lot of resources, also human resources, who can help you, and they guide you through the process. So my advice is always call the big ones, like just, and really call them, because if sometimes some look on their website, some of them say they will only answer you by email, but then of course you write an email. But if you have the possibility to call and to talk to the real person, it's really, really helpful, because they will give you advice. You can say, hey, this is me, this is my project, I'm planning on sending you my proposal. And then just ask, do you think it has a chance? What would be the right timing? What kind of information do you need? And you'll get a lot of information through this first personal contact. And this person will guide you through the process. And these bigger foundations, they also give you feedback. They say, okay, your proposal is good, but you need to work on your finances, or things like that. They work with you. And this will help you bring your proposal to the next level, and really improves your chances for a positive feedback. And then you go from there. It's like a waterfall. You start, and then it takes you further down the road. That's how I usually start if I have a new project that needs funding.
I agree that I think the personal relationship plays a really big role in fundraising. So it's also like, it's not you as an organization. Like, of course, it's you as an organization applying for funding, but it's also about the connection between the two humans who are building up this fundraising relationship between the organizations. So I think like just personal exchange and not too many shifts in like the contact person within the organization, but really having a team or having people who are assigned to specific foundations that they can really build the personal relationship.
And if there is one thing that you would like to change in the landscape of fundraising, what would that be? Only one?
Good question.
I go
Go
ahead,
first.
Stefanie.
No, go first.
I think as someone who's working on the project and you actually want to focus on the impact that you have, sometimes fundraising takes a lot of resources because every foundation or every institution where you place your proposal has different requirements. So I always say it's like from send it printed analog 10 times on a sheet of paper. On the other hand, you have like online forms and online processes, and you need to be prepared to many different ways of how to put in a proposal. And this sometimes takes a lot of resources just figuring out the formal requirements.
Yeah, I would have also said kind of the process. Sometimes it can be very tedious and it can be frustrating as well. So kind of it would be nice to go back to, the project base. So talk about the project, which should be in the focus and which should be kind of the basis, which it is, but sometimes it gets kind of lost in the whole system of applying and all of these details. So yeah, it would be nice if it were more or still more a bit about the people, about the project, about the motivation, that really you are there and want to do something good and want to have an impact. But I also understand that everything else also belongs to the process, but maybe there could be some ways of improving it to make it, yeah, like easier and smoother for everyone involved.
For me, I agree with you both. And then I would add the measuring that is luckily already worked on. So like impact measurement to just improve that it's not just about numbers or like hard facts, but maybe that there would be another way of measuring impact of a social project. And then also making that like very long-term impact. So not only like what is the next 1-2 years, but 5 to maybe even 10 years to really root the project and the like issues or challenges that that project is tackling into like societal change.
Yeah. Good. Thank you. We have a question from one of the participants, and he said, would you say that there tend to be trends, sort of flavor of the month issues that drive the kind of projects that are more or less likely to be attractive to funders? Perhaps this is more the case with corporate foundations?
I think so, that there are some trends that come and go. For example, I don't know if it has been around or for how long, but how I sense it in my organization, a trend is that, like, especially institutional funders, they really want or like projects that are focusing on the youth. So this is kind of, I think, a trend. I think also maybe sustainability is a trend that comes and goes. I don't know where it is right now. but I guess sometimes they flourish and less, but I'm not so sure about it. But what I have heard about from my organization, that they really like projects that are like educational and with youth at the moment. But maybe that's only in my kind of area.
Yeah, I would from my perspective, probably not monthly changes, but maybe like periodical phases. I think like one of the big topics that has been around now is also digitalization and artificial intelligence. So projects that are based in that area as well that are happily supported, just because it's also requested kind of from the government or like from different perspectives. And then it's like nice if you as an organization, like as a foundation, also have projects like that. That would be my.
Mhm. Yeah, I agree. I think there are like these trend topics that don't change monthly, but they change maybe yearly or every 2, 3 years, also depending on topics that are big in society in general. And I just talked to one foundation this week about sustainability, and they told me that they are kind of letting go of the sustainability topic a bit because it has become so common sense, and so many institutions and also governmental institutions are supporting these topics right now, that they are looking for the next big thing, and they go to the topic of age and lifelong learning and digitalization with elderly people, and this topic that they are focusing on. So which is actually I found really interesting, because that's an important role that these foundations have, is that they can support topics that are at the beginning of their life cycle. And once it has reached a certain level, or also a certain power within the society, they go to the next. And therefore, yeah, I would totally agree that there are trends. And another trend that I see is that the foundation, especially the big ones, is that they also work together. They talk together, and they also share certain initiatives in order to improve, or to have bigger power also than in order to support a certain project. And I already said also the dialogue with the project owner is becoming more and more important.
Yeah. So that's something I think that appears somehow at the beginning, that it's not just a relationship that you are building, but basically you are building a network. It's a support network.
Yeah.
But I think that perhaps the term support network will be, it will fit more what's behind than the fundraising. I think that fundraising does not represent really what the profession is about. We have another question, and it says, do you think that it is very important to know the foundation one is approaching, the kind of projects that they are funded or they have funded in the past before approaching them with yours?
Yeah, personally, I would compare it a bit to like a interview that you have for a job. So foundations love if you already know what they stand for, what are their values, what that have they done in the past, what they have supported, just so that you can also that you have already put in some effort to get to know them and to make sure that you already have a sense of, could this be a potential match for me as and for my project.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. It's crucial that you know your potential partner, that you try to find out everything you can. And most of the foundations, they offer all the information you need to know on their website. So it's very easy to access this information. And it's important, you know, because you don't want to waste your time and you don't want to waste their time.
Yeah.
So you have to make sure that you already know if this relationship has potential to become a good one.
Yeah, and in this one, so getting to know their purpose and everything, their values, but projects can help because then you can see what if the projects are very, very different as well from the ones you are trying to apply. Maybe you have to check the purpose and the values and so again to see if it really is a match, and it can help you also find out maybe if yeah. But yeah, try to find out as much as you can, but then still, what I wanted to say maybe in the beginning, still be brave if you still feel that there is the potential and maybe there has not been a project yet in that form. Still be brave and say, hey, that fits into your purpose, that fits into the values, and then go for it.
Yeah. And how do you help them evolve too? So not just to say, okay, this is about a project, but how do you bring, we were talking about the idea of ecosystem, so how do you bring them in so that they evolve together with that part of the ecosystem? And the project is a catalyzer for the evolving of all the people that are supporting or part of developing the project.
I think this depends a lot on how the foundation itself is organized and how they want to be involved, or maybe sometimes not as much. I think the minimum is that in the end you have to write and send in the report about what you've done, and then this goes into their report. It's kind of like the minimum standard. But I think more and more it's important to share experiences, and sometimes they also connect you to other projects they support, and this multiplies the effect, and also you can share the experiences with each other, and this has become more and more important as well, because I think this is a really important role also for foundations that they can play, is that they connect you to other players or to other projects in the field.
Nice. So that happens too, that they can, at a certain point, connect you with other people, and that's the ecosystem that gets developed.
Yeah.
Have you sometimes experienced the other way around, the foundation coming to you and said, look, we would like to support a project like this?
I know it happens. I know there are these foundations out there. There are foundations that only scout for projects. You cannot apply. Of course, you can try to find ways to be visible somehow in their field. You have to activate your network or try to go to certain events. It hasn't happened to me personally yet. What has happened is that foundations that I already worked with, they come and they say, hey, do you have another project for next year? Like saying there's still funding that we could give. But it hasn't happened to me. But I know there are organizations out there that go and scout for projects.
Yeah. I haven't heard it in my experience from foundations, but from institutions. So when we, for example, do as well institutional fundraising, so organizations, companies that are interested, they then normally that comes from the organization or the company or the institution that wants to kind of fund a project. In that or that area, and then they already have kind of their vision of what they want to support. So that's when they are coming. But I think that ties into the SDGs and their like corporate sustainability and stuff. So they feel like if it's big corporations, they want to do something, they need to do something good as well. So they then reach out. But for foundations, I think it's a little bit different and more normal that you reach out to them and apply.
And I think also with you working with Caritas is already a big name, it's a big brand.
Yes.
And if people or organizations, companies want to engage in the area of Caritas, I think this is good that your brand is so strong because they will think of you
Yeah,
um,
exactly. I guess
and
that's
contact you.
also applies
Yeah.
to my brand or my organization. But if you're a small project, then that might also not happen. So then you would also need to reach out, or then you're maybe more visible for foundations if you are able to be visible and be scouted. Yeah, but that's a valid point.
Yeah, and in my experience, like for the smaller project, it's really like if you maybe have someone who knows someone who works somewhere, then that link can happen also from the organization or the funding part to the project. But otherwise, it's really difficult because you also need to first establish yourself and get to like have a name or something that people will refer to if they think of a project in that area. So I would say it's more difficult.
Mhm.
One of the courses we have in the first year of the studies is fostering learning and fostering learning within organizations. Have you had the experience of a foundation coming to say, we would like to learn about this? And so can we create in this dialogue a project so that we can learn about this aspect, whatever that might be, use sustainability?
I feel like the like collaboratio helvetica started from such a perspective
Mm-hmm.
where it really was like there was financial means there and they wanted to open a space for experimentation and to see what can be done in collaboration for the SDGs. So I would say it's a very special case, but in that organization, I would say that was the starting point of the organization itself.
I know that there are foundations that set a certain topic or a certain subject of the way of collaboration, like participational
Mm-hmm.
processes that they support.
Mm-hmm.
So it's more like on a meta level and not specific one topic they are fostering. But yeah, it exists, but not all foundations
It's
work like
not
that.
common. Would you like, do you, do you think or would you like to see more of that or?
I think it's a nice thing, kind of a nice thought, because when we talked in the beginning about that foundations are really also kind of the the kind of transformation makers or
Mm-hmm.
shifters in our society, they have they have kind of the opportunities and the power to be able to support certain things or push certain matters in society, which I think is a very nice thought. And then connecting this to them also being learning organizations would make a lot of sense to me. So yeah, I would think that's something that could be a nice thing to explore.
Mm-hmm.
How it then would look like is really something I don't know.
Mm-hmm. I think that certainly it will help to start moving away from the transactional model,
Mhm.
that I give you this and what I give you is basically the money, right? So moving away from give me the money from can we learn together and can we learn together to transform this?
Mhm.
So for me, that will be the win-win situation that we were discussing at the beginning.
Yeah, and if I listen to Stefanie, I get this picture of all these projects being like satellites out
Mm-hmm.
there, and the foundations have kind of like the power to bring it into a system, to connect it, to be like the connecting force that kind of like puts it all in a system that makes sense.
Do you think that that's taking place or is a reality that is far away?
I think that is taking place. Um, with the bigger foundations that I know in the field, I think yes, it's more and more. They're also working on their structure. There are a lot of initiatives also happening for foundations itself themselves and how they work and what their role in society is.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think this is going to be like this or next year, but this is also a process. Also these foundations, they are in a transformation process.
Super. So
Mhm.
everything is evolving. Um, I'm talking to not the panelists, but the people attending. If you have questions, please write them in the chat or in the Q&A that we have active so that you can start engaging more with them. And do you have questions, Violetta, Stefanie, and Julia, that you would like us to explore or people to answer? Or
I would have a question for Violetta
yes.
and from her experience. I have now had more the cases that foundations love to support always new initiatives and new projects and new ideas. And how do you perceive it? Do you perceive it the same, or do you see also a continuation with the relationship of the foundation with a project, or do you see, yeah, or do you sense like a similar thing that that a foundation always loves to have like something new again?
Mhm. Yeah, I can absolutely understand your perception. And I think one of the reasons is that most foundation or also different funding institutions, um, they only have or give themselves the possibility to support a project and not support or not fund like general costs. So if you start a project in the beginning, you have all these costs of setting it up and making it work and setting up the process and the marketing and everything. And then once it's established, you have like these operational costs, which then cannot be funded anymore by foundations or also by other governmental institutions. And then you need to find a different way of funding. This kind of like brings us a bit to this loop of, okay, you have to come up with a new project every year in order to get funding for your institution. Um, yeah, this is a known situation and a known challenge. I have also heard of foundations who think about changing their own regulations in order to be able, especially the cultural sector, to also give funds for operational costs. But I think this is kind of like a system inherent problem or challenge, yeah, that we mostly talk about project-based funding.
And I think that for me, maybe that's one of the shift from changing from money transaction project to more how do we help whatever part of society or community to evolve in certain areas. It could be education, it could be sustainability, it could be peace. So you name it. I think that the list is quite long. It could be culture. Um, I see another question. How do you, Violetta, collect ideas about how should you present your case every time you start your relation with a foundation? Um, I don't think that there could be an one-size-fits-all kind of strategy. So what would you recommend?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. There is no one size fits all. We talked about earlier with Julia and Stefanie also about finding the purpose and finding the impact for society. And that's something I work on a lot with the projects that I consult. And there is somehow a simple tool that I often use in the workshop. It's the 5 whys. It's if you ask yourself 5 times, why am I doing this? And you always go deeper, then you start to get closer to the core and the impact. So I think, no, there is no one size fits all, but the process that you go through with every project is similar. Like you work on, okay, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? Why do you think this is important? What's the impact? What's the shift you hope for or you want to reach? And then this is the creative part. And you talk about the stakeholders and the target group and your values, and then what's really the output and the outcome, what you do, what the resources you need. And then there is a standardized process in bringing this into a proposal or the project documentation, which has a certain structure, which always talks about what's the situation, what's the society, the impact you want to have on society, what are you doing, who's the team, why do you think you can do this, what's about the financial, what's the timing, and maybe you have like an advisory board or someone who can give you recommendations regarding the project or the people working on the project. So it's a mix of being creative and really helping the project to find. We talked about storytelling, so it's really how to tell the story, how to formulate the elevator pitch for your project, and then the standardized process of bringing it all into this proposal and project documentation.
Very interesting, because for me, what you have just shared is the process you go through to find money for research projects.
Exactly. Yeah.
So
yeah.
I have once a colleague that says that as researchers, we are entrepreneurs. So that she feels she's an entrepreneur, and there are similarities.
Yeah, and it's also the same if you have a startup and you're looking for startup investment. Like you always have to somehow sell your story or just make sure that you find an audience for the story you're telling. And if you're looking for partners, if you're looking for funding, doesn't really matter the subject. The process is always very similar.
Yeah. And how do you think the expertise toolkit is changing?
The toolkit on the fundraising side, you mean?
Yes.
That's hard for me to answer because I don't know how a lot of other fundraisers work, but I think it has become more strategical. Like you have
Okay.
more bringing your strategy, your position on the market, work on your USP. Maybe also think about what would happen if this project cannot happen. Like if I don't find funding, what will be missing in the society? I think you have to work more on a strategic level. I would assume.
Yeah. The reason why I ask is we know there is a lot of change going on, right? This is not new. I think that if we look at history is the history of change. And so one of the things that are changing is that we see more and more the notion of regenerative business. Business that will not focus just on mission vision, but on purpose, on how do you engage, what is the purpose, how do you engage with everyone. The language is different, it's not the language of the customer. The collaboration of the employees are different when the notion or the core notion is regeneration, which I understand as putting life at the center of every decision. As I said, the language is not the customer, so But more and more organizations are realizing that to have a good customer experience, which is a term that I will question, you need to have a good employee experience, right? So we are realizing more the importance of seeing the whole ecosystem, I will say, of the people involved. So what if we are having more the notion of regenerative business, and our students read a book about designing regenerative cultures by Daniel Ball, what will be in that regenerative context, regenerative fundraising?
Yeah, I think I haven't read the book, so I'm not that much of an expert as all of you are. But I think putting this life and this purpose in the center of everything you do is really important. Also, if you work in fundraising, I can only fundraise for projects that I love, that I really want to be successful. If there's a topic that doesn't touch my heart, that I don't see myself as a person being necessary for society, it's going to be hard for me and for everyone involved. I think this is like part of your own ethics, that you only accept working for projects that you really think make sense and you want to engage with this project and help it to be successful. That's what I would take from what you just explained to my perspective.
Yeah, I would add maybe to, I don't know if that is happening, but if we make this shift, it would also be useful to also have the shift towards focusing more on the long term or like long term projects to be able to really have like this regenerative impact um, on our world or on society because yeah, if we want to do something uh, that is in the sense of regeneration, it cannot happen within 1 year, I think. So maybe there this shift is happening, needs to happen. I don't know yet, but I would add that to your comment.
Yeah, I agree with Steffi that not just having like project support for 1 or 2 years, but maybe have that support, but then also support for further development from that project for like continuing projects or something like that. But really integrating like a long-term vision for society and for the environment, for life into the projects or the organizations that are supported.
Yeah. So if I think aloud, one of the questions in the context of regeneration is where is the potential? And I could imagine that in the context of regenerative fundraising, we will be moving from the deficit, so I am missing X amount of money, to what are the possibilities that this would enable. So the dialogue, the framing, the collaboration might be start being different because the focus is on the potential.
I
And I
think
think this is
we're focusing on the potential already a lot
Okay.
with fundraising, but it could be more connected or more broader or more long term, I think, in a way, to fit more into this narrative of generation, I guess. I don't know if I already said what you wanted to say or if you wanted to add something else, Violetta.
I was just thinking of a study that I just read from University of Geneva, and they find out that if you frame your project goal positively, your chances for funding are higher. So instead of saying I want to reduce poverty, you say I want to increase equality or what's equal opportunities for everyone. So I think this is just that just came up that's
Yeah.
connected to this. Yeah.
Yeah. I can see more and more coming in that direction because, as I said, if business are changing and moving toward regenerative business models and regenerative organizations, so I can see that the fundraising is also going to be affected by that mindset. And I think that it will be nice to start seeing, because the potential is not just in what can we achieve together, but the question of the potential will be a question that will be posed in different contexts. So what is the potential for our relationship? What is the potential for both of us to evolve and mutual learning? What is the potential for mutual learning in the whole ecosystem? So I think that posing the question of what is the potential will result in very nice things taking place.
Yeah, there's still a lot of potential for a lot of things happening and changing in the world. So I
Yeah,
guess fundraising is
yeah,
not going anywhere. I hope it's going, yeah, to be stronger, because it is needed. Projects and approaches and new ways of thinking and doing and
yeah.
living are needed. So yeah.
I received another question, and it says, to what extent do fund givers participate in the consequences of projects?
So the outcome in
Yes.
My answer would again be it depends.
Mhm.
Yeah, so it really depends on what the fund givers how they are set up, how they want
Mhm.
to be part of the project. Some of them really want to learn and
Mhm.
want to be you want you to share your learnings along the way. Also, um, your failures,
Yeah,
learn also from your failures, and they
yeah,
share very open communication in this regard. And then others, not so much, but I don't think that they are not interested. It just depends on how they are set
yeah,
up. Some
yeah,
foundations are really small and they have like a board and they come together like 3 or 4 times a year and they
yeah,
decide, and that's it. So
yeah,
there are not the resources to be part of the project and also of the consequences of the projects. And then there are other foundations that they have more also human resources to really work with you. We talked about that. So yeah, again, the answer is
yes.
depends.
Usually the answer is it depends.
Yeah.
Um, I'm aware of time and we have 1 more minute. Or one thing that you have learned, if we are talking about mutual learning, is there something that in the context of this conversation you have learned and you will like to share? Or is there something that you will like to say
Mhm.
close to highlight?
Um, I don't know if Guillermina. Oh, ah, everybody here. It's some. I think everybody froze for me for a while. Okay.
Okay.
Um, I think I just have to bring back what I already said. It's kind of now thinking about it in a new mindset, because for me, fundraising always has this negative touch in a way that
Mhm.
it can be frustrating, that it is transactional, that you ask for something and you need, money back. But now looking at it through this conversation, through another lens of seeing, okay, it's being able to make things possible, being able to shape our future, being able to shape our society, makes it much more exciting for me. So that's something I learned and I will also take back.
Super. Thank you.
Yeah, for me too, like seeing the potential of the collaboration and seeing it really more in this relational thing of achieving and doing things together. And then also for like just me as an individual, like if I ever would want to start a project to go from where I would like to contribute, but also to see where is the potential, collective potential with foundations together to do something that is meaningful for both, which would also make like my project development easier and better.
Yeah, and I think the thing that I will take away from today is that it's very nice to work in a community and to share the experiences with people like you, because I think we all make similar experiences and sometimes it helps to get different perspectives. And I think that was really interesting to hear from different people who are working in this field and see how you are how about your mindset is and how you are working, and see what's the trends and the transformation that's going on also from your perspective. I think that's really valuable for me. Thank you.
Thank you very much to all of you. It has been a pleasure, and I really enjoy, and I think that it was a very nice moment of discussing fundraising and the future of fundraising. Thank you.
Thank
Thank you
you.
as well. It was very nice talking to you guys.
Thank you.